Morning. Today is Monday, the 12th of June. You're live on the AM Report. Great to start the day with you. I'm Amanda Ngati.
And I'm Michelle Craig. A very good morning to you. Indeed, this leads your bulletin. Electricity Minister Kgosientsho Ramokgopa will be meeting Mozambique's Mineral Resources and Energy Minister Zacarias at the Union Buildings this morning. It comes as Ramokgopa has announced in April that he was in talks with that country to access 1,000 megawatts of power. Of course, it's all to alleviate South Africa's energy crisis. Let's give you some analysis on the story. Newzroom Afrika Ziyanda Ngcobo is live to us from the capital this morning. Ziyanda, it's great to see you. Of course, there is a lot of history in this electricity relationship between South Africa and Mozambique. How does that history translate into where we are now?
Very important that you mention the history between the two countries, because it's exactly what I think Electricity Minister Kgosientsho Ramokgopa will largely be relying on in those talks. So you'll remember during that ANC NEC briefing that he held in April, where he said that there were several interventions that were currently taking place on the part of the government and in particular his department. So in one, it's a new energy generation, which you'll know in May, bid window 7 opened up, which basically I think it's sitting at a couple of thousand megawatts there. But also in this aspect then that we're going to be seeing today with that Mineral Resources Minister Zacarias, there'll be a discussion of getting possibly 1,000 megawatts. That's what at the time Kgosientsho Ramokgopa had pegged the figures. Perhaps they might be larger, but you'll know that Mozambique is a very resource-rich country when it comes to energy, in particular natural gas. In fact, their energy levels are sitting at about 180 gigawatts, and so they have been supplying several countries such as ours with a lot of energy, in particular in the SADC region. So we'll be hearing then whether or not there will be an extension of that. Maybe we could be getting more megawatts from Mozambique, and the terms and conditions of such an agreement.
Yeah, we're waiting with bated breath, aren't we? As we continue to get a bit of a reprieve from load shedding, even this week from Eskom. But yeah, as you say, Ziyanda, 187 gigawatts is what Mozambique has in potential generation capacity. One just wonders what the cost will be to South Africa if indeed there is an agreement that can be reached today, and whether it is something that we can afford.
Yeah, so affordability is very critical, and you keep mentioning the slight reprieve that we received, and you'll know that there's been some skepticism around that, and Paul Makwana was at pains to explain in one of the articles that I read, I think it was with Bloomberg, where he said that part of the reason why there's been some reprieve is because of the change in leadership at Eskom. I'm mentioning this in relation to affordability when we look at how Eskom has consistently had to be bailed out, but two, just last week Treasury announced that it will not be granting that exemption from Eskom when it comes to reporting on wasteful and irregular expenditure. So we still need to also get a sense of where the finances of Eskom are vis-a-vis how much Treasury is willing to actually put down insofar as these measures. You'll know that only recently did we get those powers that were given to Kgosientsho Ramokgopa as described in the Electricity Act. So we'll have to see also how much he can actually flex his muscles, because his mandate, even though it has now been declared, it can be quite limited. And you'll know that unlike in other countries, they don't have an electricity minister, they have a mineral resources minister. So someone like Gwede Mantashe would have ordinarily met with Zacarias, but today we'll then hear from Ramokgopa what is going to take place in terms of the cost, how long this agreement would be in place for as well, and whether or not it will actually bring a reprieve, so much so that, as Fikile Mbalula said, that he's claiming that load shedding will be done by the end of the year.
Well, election-wise, that would be ideal, wouldn't it, for the African National Congress, Ziyanda, as we build up to next year's, what many analysts are calling, watershed election. Such promises, even this reprieve that we've had just over the past couple of weeks, it's the reason why it's being met with so much cynicism.
Absolutely. And let's also be very clear, Michelle. There's been double speak from the part of the governing party and the government. So Fikile Mbalula says, oh yes, definitely we can end load shedding by 2023. Obviously, probably as a part of his electioneering efforts. But Kgosientsho Ramokgopa himself in April saying that, and quote, it will technically not be possible to end load shedding at the end of this year. However, maybe the loads, the schedules would reduce, as we've seen over the last couple of days. But we've also seen, communication from Eskom not being clear. You'll remember last week, Michelle, Eskom communicating that there'll be no load shedding for the rest of the weekend because of, generating capacity having increased. And then a few hours later, literally at 4 o'clock, they resumed load shedding at around stage 4, if my memory serves well. So this is where the skepticism lies. And of course, we know that the governing party is in a race against time to try and resolve this load shedding crisis. It's not what I'm saying. It's what they've also admitted, and they know that this is one of the issues that could be a threat towards them when it comes the time for the citizens to go to the polls.
Absolutely. Ziyanda Ngcobo is live to us there at the Union Buildings. Thanks very much indeed for that update.